Everyone. Till now, we discussed about different topics or functionalities under the product management. Now, in this current video, we are going to discuss about the enablers, what is the types of enablers, and why or how the enablers would be going to help from the implementation perspective. So let's get started. Once we define the features, we will start slicing down the features into user stories. And the reference feature we are going through as part of this video, as part of this topic is the activating account for a new user registration. With that context, let's get started with the enablers topic. What is the enablers? So anytime when we go for an implementation of any product, any application, any solution, we might have to go through different aspects related to technical implementation, or the team might want to do a spike or a POC or some research before the actual implementation. So whatever the work the team is doing, or what are the enablers, what are the things the team is getting ready, getting prepared for the actual implementation, we can define them as enablers from the implementation perspective. Right. The most common term is used as spike from the usage in the different companies across the industries, across the companies, but we can call it as an enabler as well. Both are synonyms, so nothing to worry. But by calling it as an enabler, there is a different advantage which we could be getting as we go into the video, as we go into the topic, we will get an idea about it. So one thing is like the enablers won't be directly providing value to the end users, the customer stakeholders. However, they might be required before actual implementation of the user stories. For example, before having this session or before having this recording, I have to come up with this content. I have to come up with this template. I have to get the Zoom session enabled and everything. So those are the types of enablers for me to get this video recorded and uploaded into YouTube. Like that, each team or each company, each product, each project would be going through different types of enablers. Let's take a look into it. One more thing is, as these are not directly providing value to the end user, no need to explicitly follow the user story format. Right? In one of the previous videos, we discussed as a user, I want to do this activity so that I will be getting this business value or the benefit. That is a recommended format for a user stories, where we are directly giving value to the end users. However, here for enablers, these are not directly giving value to the end user. So no need to explicitly follow the user story format. The team can follow whatever is feasible, whatever is comfortable, whatever is convenient for them. They can follow that format for defining the enabler. The types of enablers. There are 4 types of enablers. The first one, which you can call is the most common, is an exploration enabler. So this is the type of enabler which could be coming up every now and then, as and when the teams are trying to do something new for the first time. Right? So when I'm trying to do this video recordings, first couple of times I had to try it out and see how the recording is coming up, how the slideshow is coming up, and how the upload is happening to YouTube. So that is all like I am exploring myself from the uploading, from the creation, from the uploading perspective. The same way, from the activating the new user or feature perspective, the team might have to do some analysis, research, or the experiment before the actual implementation of activating the user registration. Right. So the couple of exploration enabler examples are like generating the OTP. Yes. The web application, the mobile application, everything we can define which within our scope as a team, as an organization. But generating on OTP, maybe we are trying it out for the first time. If that is the case, you might want to see how the generation happens and how it gets tagged to that respective user session, right? And how it could be passed on to the user once it is generated. You might want to try it out for the first time. The same way, as we capture the different personal details like the government ID, phone number, email address, as part of the activation of the user profile, we might want to try how we want to encrypt the data and store it, and how we can decrypt if in case whenever we are extracting or we are fetching back from the database. Or maybe these are the two examples from the exploration or from the research from the analysis perspective. There could be different exploration enablers as well coming into context. I'm just giving two as an example. The next thing is architecture enabler. What is architecture? The name itself is saying that architecture. So for coming up with the implementation, the teams have to work on the implementation, the design, the architecture. It could be involved with the database, it could be involved with any configurations or anything as such. That is what we can consider as we can categorize it as an architecture enabler. The next third type of enabler is like an infrastructure enabler or infra enabler. Right? Again, this is not directly providing value to the end users, but this is from the teams or from the current context perspective. If in case we have to upgrade to a new tool or a new version, or have to go through the patches or some installation or anything as such, or setting up your CI/CD pipeline or setting up your Jenkins configuration, each and everything which are required for the team to go ahead and do the actual implementation, those type of enablers or those type of things we can categorize under infrastructure enablers. The next is like a compliance enabler. Again, this may not be common from the implementation perspective. Not each and every sprint, each and every team might be working on it, but these are also required from the overall implementation. Like example, for generating the OTP, yes, we already did exploration, we got an idea, but for sending the OTP to the phone numbers, we might need the approval from either the tribe or the government authorities, or from the telecom companies, or from even the user as well, right? So those type of things, the approvals or anything, the final validations, authentication, or anything as such, if it is required, if the teams or someone from the organization has to work on it, we can define, we can categorize it as well, okay, compliance enabler. So these are the different 4 types of enablers which the team or the company or the product or whoever is working on the implementation might have to work on it. Right? So now we got an idea, right? So rather than just mentioning it as a spike, if we start tagging them as a different type of enabler, it will give a clear picture what is that we are trying to work upon, or what is that we are trying to achieve by the type of enabler we define. One more point which we need to remember or take into consideration is not each and every sprint, not each and every team might be required to have these type of enablers, right? As and when required, we might be making use of these type of enablers, right? Example, infrastructure enabler. Do each and every sprint we'll be doing some tool upgrade or patch or installation or setting up the framework? No, it might be like the first time when we are starting with the product or the implementation, or as and when some new team member joins, or where as and when some new software updates or versions are coming up, only then we might be doing it. The same way for the compliance enabler, right? We might be doing it once for a project or the product or the application, and we will get it clear, we'll get it done. So if you go back to the previous slide, the architecture enabler also the same thing, right? So once we define the database, once we define the schemas, once we define the things, we might be doing the updates. Again, we can consider the updates or revisions, modifications also as part of the architecture enabler. So most of the cases, the teams might be going through the exploration enablers, and that's the reason the most commonly heard or used type of enabler is like a spike, because that is what the teams are trying to do from the implementation perspective. So now we got an idea here, not only the spike, we have different type of enablers which we can start making use of it from the implementation. Okay, so what's next? Once we identify the enablers, we can define it, and the next step is like we need to prioritize the enablers before the starting with the actual user stories, right? So if we have to go with generating the OTP user story for the authentication of email address or phone number, First, I need to know how to generate the OTP or how to pass it on to the phone number or how to pass it on to the email address or how to get it tagged to that respective session or to that respective user ID, with the customer ID. Right? That is the things we might be required to do before the actual user stories, but validating the profile using email address or phone number. The same way, we need to plan the user stories implementation accordingly in the subsequent sprints. Once we know which sprints we are planning or prioritizing the enablers, accordingly in the subsequent sprints, we can plan the actual user stories. And sometimes based upon the exploration or based upon the feedback we receive or based upon the POC we done, right, based upon the options we choose from the outcome of the enablers, we might want to revise or rewrite the user stories based upon these outcomes or based upon the inputs, based upon the feedback we collect, we gather once the exploration or research or the experimentation is done from the enablers perspective. That's it from the enablers perspective. Hope you find this video helpful for you. Thank you.